My children promised me a weekend makeover for my cozy bungalow. Fresh paint, new carpet, a surprise gift for all my years of sacrifice. 2 days later, I found every photograph, quilt, and diary I'd ever loved, padlocked inside a dusty storage unit on the edge of town. They thought boxing up my past would make me docile. Instead, it lit a fuse I'd been saving since segregation days. And once a fuse burns, sugar, you can't push it back into the match. Good evening, sweet souls. It's Veronica Ronnie Carter here, 68 years young and every inch alive. Where are y'all listening from tonight? Type your city down below so I can picture each porch, light flickering with mine as this tale unfolds. I have always believed that a home is nothing more and nothing less than a quilt you can walk through. Every wall, every squeaky plank in the hallway, every faded photograph becomes a patch of fabric stitched together with the strong black thread of time. My own quilt house started its life on the humid Saturday when my husband Henry Carter, fresh from Vietnam and still limping on a leg the Army called serviceable, carried me over the threshold laughing that I would not disgrace my Sunday dress by tripping on a nail protruding from the porch. Back then, banks didn't love folks who looked like us, so we built equity with paint scraped from discount bins, with second-hand kitchen cabinets, and with a stubborn refusal to leave even when neighbors whispered we should move somewhere more modern. 45 years later, every inch of that bungalow on Magnolia Avenue pulsed with music, the low rumble of Henry's old jazz records, the gospel riff of the neighborhood choir practicing in our living room before revival week, the metallic clatter of grandbaby toy cars racing across the linoleum. 3 children, Maurice, Darren, and Janae, grew tall inside those walls. Their height marks were still penciled on the doorframe, little monuments that no coat of paint ever managed to erase. So when my eldest called one random Tuesday evening, voice strung tighter than a banjo, I paused the kettle to listen. "Mama," Maurice proclaimed, "your place needs upgrading. You've got mold creeping up the crawl space and the breaker panel looks prehistoric. Let us, your dutiful children, give you a pamper weekend while we handle repairs." He painted visions of fresh drywall, recessed lighting, and something he called an open concept kitchen, a phrase I'd only heard on those television shows where couples knock down perfectly decent walls. I chuckled and warned him not to lay a finger on Henry's dusty record player. Maurice laughed, too quick, too brittle, then promised, "Of course, Mama. Henry's music is sacred." The invitation sounded sweet on the surface, like warm honey drizzled over cornbread, but my gut wrinkled with unease. Still, a mother's heart is a forgiving organ. It keeps beating optimism even after disappointment squeezes it blue. I accepted. Saturday arrived, wrapped in Carolina blue sky, so pure the birds seemed embarrassed to interrupt it. A white rental van with a corporate logo I didn't recognize idled at the curb, engine purring like a photo shoot lion. Maurice hopped out wearing sneakers so clean you could inspect your soul in the reflection. Darren followed, clipboard tucked under one arm like he was scouting a construction site. Janae, the baby, my social media butterfly, clicked across the pavement in ankle-breaking heels, thumbs already dancing across her phone screen. "Mama, surprise!" Janae sang, kissing the air near my cheek, but never making contact, as though affection might smudge her foundation. "We booked you for a mani-pedi, a seaweed wrap, and a deep tissue massage at Serenity Springs Day Spa. Go relax while we transform the house." Before I could protest, Darren produced a color-coded schedule showing every plumbing pipe and baseboard underlined in fluorescent marker. "We've hired professionals," he assured. The van outside will haul out junk so contractors have space. On the word junk, something in my chest pinched. They guided me toward Maurice's SUV, a leather-scented chariot of modern luxury. I noticed there were no toolboxes in the bed, no paint cans, no rolls of insulation, just rows of plastic storage totes stacked like brand new coffins. When I asked, Maurice said it was organizational staging. The spa smelled of lavender and eucalyptus, and the receptionist treated me like misplaced royalty, offering cucumber water in an etched glass. I tried to surrender to the luxury, but as hot stones pressed into my arthritic spine, a colder stone settled where my rib cage met dread. I phoned Maurice. His voicemail chirped a slick corporate greeting. Darren's line went straight to silent. Janae texted back a heart eye emoji followed by, "Everything's fine, Mama." Half my salon hour evaporated into staring at that single word. Fine. I excused myself from the massage table, face still slick with some herb-infused serum, and stumbled barefoot through the lobby. The taxi dispatcher looked skeptical when a woman wearing a terry cloth robe asked for a ride across Atlanta. But a crisp $20 bill cures skepticism quick. We turned onto Magnolia Avenue just as the sun began to droop behind the loblolly pines. From the taxi window, I spotted my lawn crawling with cardboard mountains, towering stacks of boxes taped and labeled in thick black Sharpie, kitchen, donate, bedroom, auction, mama memorabilia, archive. Two men in fluorescent vests loaded the last of them into the white rental van while a third swept the porch of stray photographs, sliding them into a trash bag. I lurched from the taxi without paying the balance, blessed that driver who yelled I could settle up later, and sprinted across the yard. The movers barely glanced at me as they slammed the van doors shut and rolled away, taillights disappearing like retreating red eyes. Inside, my home felt hollow, stripped to bone. The cross-stitched scripture above the fireplace lay face down on the floor. The wall where Henry's vinyl shelf once stood now displayed a pale rectangle, an empty wound. Even the small ceramic rooster that sat atop my kitchen cabinet, a gag gift from the church ladies, had vanished. Maurice emerged from my empty bedroom carrying a clipboard, no sweat dotting his engineered eyebrows. "Mama, you're back early," he said. "Where is my life?" My voice sounded foreign, brittle. He launched into a salesman's monologue about minimalism, downsizing, liability shielding, generational efficiency. Darren chimed in with talk of streamlining assets and maximizing capital flow. Janae never looked up, still scrolling what I imagined was a Pinterest board titled, "How to Disappear Your Mother's Sentiment." My memories are not clutter, I told them, hand shaking as I pointed to the bare mantel. "Bring my things in right now." "Mama," Maurice sighed, stepping closer, "you hold on to too much. We found mold on those old books, and your dairy can attract pests." "That's not dairy, those are my journals," he exhaled like a patient teacher. "They're safe in climate-controlled storage. Unit B17, West Lux Self-Store. We prepaid 6 months, everything's barcoded, you'll adjust, just breathe." I didn't breathe, I roared, but my roar came from a throat rusty with betrayal, so it sounded more like a wounded whistle. The children exchanged glances, the same silent conspiratorial looks that once meant they'd broken a window playing baseball. Only now the broken pane was my soul. I tore back outside, but the rental van was gone. My quilt house had become a skeletal frame of sheetrock and echo. A lone photo had escaped in the shuffle. Henry at 22, trumpet raised mid-solo, frozen in sepia jubilation. I pressed that photo to my chest like armor. Neighbors peeked between blinds. Pity feels heavier when worn in evening light. I ignored them. Dialing the number on the van's tailgate, a dispatcher answered. I demanded the storage address. She hesitated until anger sharpened my tone to a razor. 5 minutes later, a second taxi pulled up. I climbed in, still wearing that spa robe, cucumber mask dried to a flaky crust, clutching Henry's photograph in one hand and dread in the other. The driver nodded, perhaps sensing a story best left unopened. As we sped toward the freeway, the first streetlights flickered on, illuminating Magnolia Avenue's tidy lawns, proof that a neighborhood can look immaculate while heartbreak blooms in its flower beds. I realized then that my children hadn't just hauled away possessions. They'd attempted to repurpose my very identity into something profitable, efficient, and silent. But quilts have sturdy stitching. Pull one square and the rest bunch up. Resisting, and I, Veronica Carter, was stitched of sterner stuff than they remembered. I turned to the taxi driver and, surprising even myself, laughed. A brittle laugh, yes, but alive. "Sir," I said, "drive faster. There's a padlock waiting to learn who it's dealing with." Outside, the city's lights blurred into golden threads. In my lap, Henry's photo trembled, or maybe that was my own pulse. Either way, this night was sewing a fierce new pattern into the old quilt of my life, and I intended to finish the stitching myself, needle bright, thread unbreakable. West Luck's self-store sprawled beneath Interstate 20 like a hive of regrets, endless rows of burnt orange doors, each guarding some family's forgotten heartbeat. The night guard, a lanky 20-something whose earbuds leaked trap music, looked skeptical when a bathrobed grandmother marched in, waving an ID card still sticky with cucumber serum. But a voice honed by 5 decades of choir directing can part seas of doubt. Within minutes, he was leading me down corridor B, flashlight beam wobbling. Unit B-17 sat halfway along the row, a titanium padlock gleaming like gator eyes in high beams. The guard fumbled keys. "Your kids dropped 20 grand on prepaid fees," he muttered. "Said you'd be grateful tomorrow." I answered with a scowl. The lock snapped, metal surrendering to resolve. The overhead bulb flickered alive, revealing cardboard monoliths. My life. Itemized. Winter clothes, charity, kitchen, yard sale, and, shoved highest, mama memorabilia, archive. The word archive stung. Archives are where history goes to nap, not breathe. I climbed a step stool, knees crackling like static, and dragged down the top box. Henry's trumpet mouthpiece clinked against my wedding tiara, both wrapped in grocery ads. I found Sunday school attendance sheets, church bake sale ribbons, and the sugar sack quilt Grandma Lula stitched during Eisenhower's first term, now smelling faintly of mothballs and betrayal. Tears swelled, but grief took a backseat to curiosity when I spotted a banker's box marked financial, private. Inside lay a manila folder stamped Silver Oaks Senior Living, pre-admission packet, and worse, a legal document. Durable power of attorney, Veronica Carter. My name appeared above Maurice's signature alongside a flourish that looked vaguely like mine, yet not quite. The forgery was neat, confident, and utterly heartless. Clipped to the packet was a neon sticky note. Deposit via wire Monday. Secure family incentive bonus. Family incentive bonus. They were selling my freedom at an introductory rate. The storage unit's thin roof amplified highway rumble overhead, but an even louder noise grew inside my chest. Drums of indignation. My children had not only kidnapped my memories, they had forged my consent to prepare a gilded cage. Deep in the folder sat an evaluation form describing me as increasingly forgetful, prone to confusion, and physically at risk if left unsupervised. Lies, all of it. I could still recite Galatians by heart, and outpace half the church line at potluck. Their narrative of decline felt like acid on skin. Phone reception stuttered beneath corrugated steel, but righteous fury boosts any signal. I called Dr. Mariah Carter, cousin, sorority sister, and tenured law professor at Tennessee State. She answered on the second ring. I explained forged signatures, prepaid elder housing, the bonus clause. Elder exploitation under Georgia code, she said, voice steel. Interstate wire fraud if money cross state lines. Hang tight. I'll drive down Monday with a notary and copies of the statute. I photographed every page, flash reflecting off tears I refused to wipe. The guard cleared his throat, eyes softening. Ma'am, you want help hauling this back to your car? I shook my head. Tonight called for evidence, not heirlooms. I repacked only the financial box and Henry's trumpet mouthpiece. Proof of music no power of attorney could silence. Outside, humid midnight wrapped me in cicada song. My taxi driver, same kind soul who'd ferried me here, waited curbside, trunk open. He saw the legal folder and asked no questions. Silence can be a balm when truth already burns bright. Returning to Magnolia Avenue felt like entering a crime scene. Kitchen cabinets yawned empty. Even my coffee jar was gone, as though caffeine might fuel rebellion. Only one item greeted me on the counter, a gallon of store-brand sweet tea, condensation pooling like tears. Mercy or mockery? I couldn't tell. I sat cross-legged on bare living room planks, quilt around shoulders, Henry's mouthpiece cool in my palm. Jazz riffs, wedding vows, bedtime stories, they all lived inside that brass. My children expected compliance, but the trumpet reminded me breath becomes power when pushed through the right channel. So I drafted my battle plan on the back of a past-due light bill, secure legal firepower, freeze any transfer of title on the house, alert the church elders, nobody fights alone. Guard evidence like mana. At dawn, I'd visit county records, then the notary whose seal stained the forged POA. But tonight I prayed, hands tight, voice steady. Lord, turn my hurt into a hammer, and let the first nail be truth. Somewhere past 2 a.m. thunder rolled, a summer storm gathering, lightning flashed, illuminating walls stripped bare, yet still standing much like me. I realized a quilt house isn't fabric after all, it's the spine of the woman inside it. Mine was crooked from years of carrying others, but not broken. I lay down on the floorboards, quilt beneath my head, folder under my arm. Rain began to drum the roof, a lullaby of renewal. Before sleep claimed me, one final thought glowed. They boxed up my past, but tomorrow I'll unlock a future they never expected. Sunday sunlight bled pink across Magnolia Avenue as I hobbled to the curb, quilt house keys jangling like wind chimes out of tune. My first stop was the County Clerk of Deeds, a low brick building that smelled of toner and slow justice. The receptionist, a kindly man with bifocals thick as pecan pie, raised his brows when I slid the forged power of attorney across the counter. Ma'am, this seal's from Notary Chunroy 2082, he said, wheeling over an index log. But Ms. Burdell's signature hasn't been on file since she retired 2 years ago. Retired. Yet her stamp danced on a document dated last Thursday. I photographed the log, heart steady as church drums. Next, I marched to Citizens Bank, clutching my passbook like scripture. The manager, Mr. Rodwell, mustache twitching with unease, confirmed my worst fear. Maurice had attempted a withdrawal of $50,000 on Friday, but was blocked by a signature verification hold. He's due back tomorrow, Rodwell whispered. We'll keep the hold in place if you produce an affidavit by noon. Affidavit. That would be Dr. Mariah's department, but she was still barreling down I-75 in her Honda. I needed interim muscle. Enter Reverend Elijah Polk. One phone call had him materialize at my porch in that three-piece linen suit brighter than August noon. He listened, chin lifted, then said, "Sister Ronnie, we gon' use the whole choir for this song." By mid-morning, church deacons fanned out, collecting character statements, printing flyers, warning of elder exploitation, and arranging a noon prayer gathering outside Citizens Bank. While the saints mobilized, I drove Henry's rust-flecked Cadillac to Sweetwater Mobile Notary. Ms. Odessa Burdell, retired, knitting on her porch, gasped when I showed her the forged stamp. "Child, I ain't notarized a thing since sciatica set in," she fussed, signing an affidavit swearing the seal was stolen. She threw in her Walker rubber tip as evidence. "They took my stamp same night they broke the gate." Noon struck. Townsfolk lined the sidewalk outside Citizens Bank humming, "Soon and very soon." Maurice pulled up in his Tesla, suit crisp, face wilted at the sight of hymnals raised like protest signs. I stepped from the Cadillac, affidavit in hand. "Mama, what is this circus?" he hissed. "This," I said, voice honeyed but sharp, "is your spiritual margin call." I presented Rodwell with Ms. Burdell's affidavit. The manager nodded, filing it with the bank's legal department. Withdrawal denied, account frozen pending investigation. Maurice's cheeks blazed. "You're making a public spectacle." I leaned close. "Baby, sunlight ain't a spectacle, it's disinfectant." Darren arrived next, sweat beaded and clutching a briefcase. Janae followed, eyes glued to her phone, live streaming the choir. Comments erupted. "You're free, Grandma. Shame on greedy kids' choir goals." Virality blossomed faster than azaleas. Reverend Polk cleared his throat. Hymn halted. "Brother Maurice, Sister Janae, Brother Darren, our prayers today ask for repentance. The path is open." Maurice spluttered. Darren muttered about misunderstood paperwork. Janae wiped a tear but kept filming. I raised Henry's trumpet mouthpiece, glinting in summer sun. "This is breath turned into music," I said, "and breath is God's signature. You forged mine, you will not forge his." Choir resumed, a wall of harmony that rolled across bank glass, rattling Maurice's bravado. He finally whispered, "Let's talk inside." In Rodwell's office, I outlined my terms. Return every boxed item by sundown, sign a confession of forgery, and agree to counseling arranged by Reverend Polk. Otherwise, I'd press charges: elder exploitation, wire fraud, grand larceny. Maurice's shoulders sagged. Darren nodded, eyes glazed. Janae asked, "Can we at least film the apology? My followers need closure." "Closure isn't content," I answered. "It's commitment." They capitulated. A moving crew redirected boxes back to Magnolia Avenue. Choir ladies supervised, white gloves demanding fragile stickers on every memory. By dusk, Henry's record player hummed Coltrane in my living room. The quilt lay folded on the sofa, smelling of rain and redemption. Exhausted, I brewed sweet tea, my own brand now, not theirs, and sat on the porch swing. Fireflies stitched constellations over newly returned furniture. Reverend Polk stopped by, handing me a donation envelope. "Legal fund," he winked. I opened it. 20 crisp $100 bills, anonymous. On the envelope flap, one line, "For the woman who taught us quilts, remember." I exhaled, gratitude mingling with resolve. Tomorrow, the forged senior living contract still needed shredding. Bank affidavits still needed filing, and stolen notary stamps still needed tracing. But tonight, the quilt house breathed. My cousin Mariah rolls into town with a legal tidal wave. The notary's stolen stamp shows up at a pawn shop, and the senior living sales rep cracks under choir-led cross-examination. Grab your teacup. Loves. Truth is steeping strong. Dawn crept over Magnolia Avenue draped in gold and apology. Moving boxes now sat emptied on my porch like humbled soldiers. Inside, every shelf brimmed with returned memories wrapped in Rev Polk approved bubble wrap. But the battle was only half won. The contract with Silver Oak Senior Living still loomed, and somewhere a notary stamp waddled through the city's pawnshop underworld. Dr. Mariah arrived at 7, coffee in one hand, State Bar briefcase in the other. Ronnie, we've got 2 fires and 1 hose. Pick which burns first. The contract, I said, sliding her the pre-admission packet. Shred it? No, embalm it. Jury Exhibit A. She skimmed, lips pursed. Look at this arbitration clause, designed to muzzle lawsuits. We'll void it on grounds of incapacity and forgery, then we sue for punitive damages. Her smile was thin steel. We headed to the downtown pawn district, Reverend Polk driving, choir sister Ruth riding shotgun armed with a plate of apology muffins. The third shop on Peachtree bore fruit, a glass case glittering with trinkets from 1,000 fractured promises, and there, Ms. Burdell's notary stamp. Initials OB 1482 etched like a confession. The pawnbroker, a wiry man named Lou, shrugged. Guy sold it for gas money. Tall, light-skinned Tesla key fob. Maurice's description fit like guilty shoes. Mariah purchased the stamp for $20, obtained Lou's receipt, and slid both into an evidence sleeve. Back at the courthouse annex, we filed an emergency injunction against Silver Oaks, attaching the stamp theft and forged POA as exhibits. The clerk, cheeks flushed, issued a hearing date, sooner than I dared hope. News of the injunction flashed across local radio by lunchtime. Choir member Jasmine worked the station's switchboard, feeding them our press release titled Quilted Memories, Shredded Trust. At 2 p.m., the senior living sales rep, slick-haired Mr. Vance, arrived on my porch uninvited, clutching a floral arrangement. Mrs. Carter, misunderstanding your children expressed concern for mold, safety rails, Mariah interrupted, recording on her phone. Sir, did you or did you not arrange a 10% family incentive payable upon resident admission? Vance's pupils shrank. Reverend Polk emerged behind me, arms folded like granite. Vance gulped, placed the bouquet on the steps, and fled, petals scattering across the walkway like coward confetti. Evening brought a town hall meeting in the fellowship hall, standing room only. I took the podium, quilt draped over my shoulders like regalia. If they can box up my history, they can box up yours too, I told neighbors. We formed the Magnolia Elder Watch, volunteers assigned to check on every senior within 5 miles. Sign-up sheets filled faster than a potluck line. Local councilwoman Denise Porter vowed to introduce stricter notary stamp regulations. Her staff drafted the ordinance on the spot. Later, back on my porch swing, Maurice stepped onto the path alone, moonlight silvering his tears. Mama, he whispered, hands trembling. I pawned the stamp. I wired the deposit. I'm ashamed. I said nothing, letting cicadas judge the silence. Finally he knelt, head bowed. I will testify against Silver Oaks, against myself if needed, but teach me how to quilt those stitches back? I lifted the quilt from my shoulders, laid it over his. First, son, you mend the patch you tore. You visit Ms. Burdell tomorrow, fix her gate, and return her stamp in person. Then you help Reverend Polk build ramps for Sister Gloria's porch. He nodded, tears darkening fabric squares representing his own baby footprint. Inside, Henry's record spun Billie Holiday. Mariah updated court filings, choir sisters cleaned dishes, humming victory hymns. I brewed 2 mugs of sweet tea, handed one to Maurice, and watched the steam rise between us like a fragile bridge newly forged. Silver Oak's lawyers wield arbitration like a shield, but Dr. Mariah wields the stolen stamp like Excalibur. And when choir harmonies flood the courtroom, even the judge's gavel won't be the loudest sound in the room. Stay tuned. Monday dawned with courtroom gray skies that smelled of metal and promise. Roosters 3 streets over crowed like they were on retainer for justice, and I answered them by buttoning Henry's old linen blazer, still too broad at the shoulders but just right for courage. By 7:30, cousin Dr. Mariah Carter skidded her Honda Civic into my driveway, trunk stuffed with legal pads and a portable printer that looked prepared to spit subpoenas on command. Mariah hugged me hard, then held me at arm's length. "Ronnie, you've aged backward since Friday. Vengeance glows good on you." I chuckled, but the joke tasted bittersweet. Battles, light faces, and hollow stomachs. First stop. Magnolia Pawn and Gold. Reverend Polk's nephew Deshaun had tipped us that a vintage notary seal came in late Saturday. Seller paid cash, no questions. The pawn shop smelled of dust and desperation, walls glittering with saxophones and stolen wedding rings. Behind bulletproof glass, the brass seal sat like a villain's trophy. Owner Big Luther folded beefy arms. $200. Told the seller it once belonged to some nurse or something. Mariah flashed her Bar Association badge, cool as a county breeze. That stamp is evidence in an elder exploitation probe. You have 2 choices: cooperate or appear as a material witness in state court. Luther blinked twice, slid the seal under the partition. "Take it. I ain't got bail money pride." He also handed over a pawn intake slip. Seller listed as J. Whitaker, phone number matching Janae's burner cell. I photographed the slip. Mariah bagged the seal like radioactive waste. Outside, thunder rumbled distant. "Next," Mariah said, "Secretary of State's office, we'll file a fraud complaint against Silver Oaks and your kids." I winced. Maurice and Darren had at least started repenting. Janot still lived in a live stream haze, but Justice has no half-siblings. We reached the state complex by 10 a.m. Mariah's reputation preceded her. Clerks practically rolled out red tape. While she filed a multi-count complaint, forgery, unauthorized practice of law, elder financial abuse, I sat in the lobby beside a bronze statue of Lady Justice. The blindfold looked less like impartiality and more like a mother refusing to see her children's downfall. I prayed, "Lord, temper justice with redemption, but don't let redemption erase accountability." Paperwork done, we headed to Citizens Bank. Rodwell greeted us with fresh coffee and a folder of overnight security cam stills. Janae withdrawing envelopes of cash at midnight Friday, her neon nails unmistakable. Mariah slid the images into our evidence binder. "Chain of custody intact," she whispered. My stomach curdled, remembering Janny's streaming obsession. Had betrayal become just another upload? At noon, Reverend Polk convened an emergency church board meeting in Fellowship Hall. Deacons, choir mothers, even toddlers with crayons gathered. Mariah outlined the legal path: civil suit for damages, criminal referral, asset freeze. I expected clucking dismay. Instead, Brother Ellington, 81 cane tapping, stood. Sister Ronnie gave this neighborhood free bread during the 96 blackout. We stand. Applause cracked like rifle shots. Polk announced a rotation schedule. Volunteers to escort me, watchers at the bank, folks to monitor Silver Oaks marketing events for new victims, community defense, half gospel, half union strike. Mid-afternoon, Maurice texted. From therapy, he claimed. Ready to sign confession. Darren followed. Appointment with counselor booked. Janae posted a subtweet about toxic elders' gatekeeping trauma. It garnered 500 likes. I turned off my phone. Silence sometimes preaches louder. Evening settled purple over Magnolia Avenue when a county sheriff cruiser rolled up. Deputy Carver stepped out, respectful hat in hand. "Ms. Carter, we executed a search of Silver Oak's marketing office, found these." He handed over 3 bankers' boxes of glossy brochures, each promising family incentive bonuses, tiered payments for expedited admissions. Carver tipped his hat. "Grand jury will want your testimony Wednesday." My pulse stumbled, but Mariah squeezed my shoulder. "We'll have you ready." After the cruiser left, Mariah spread the brochures like tarot cards across my dining table. Each tier carried a code. FIB1, FIB2, ironic shorthand for lies. "They commodified filial guilt," she murmured. "Offer money for betrayal, call it love." Lightning finally split the sky, heavy rain drumming the roof. We brewed 2 mugs of chicory. I stared at Henry's trumpet mouthpiece on the sill, raindrops reflecting off brass like tiny camera flashes. "Ronnie," Mariah asked, voice soft, "if Maurice truly repents, will you relent on criminal charges?" I swirled my cup. "Redemption is welcome, but consequence is rent you pay for the space you occupied in somebody's pain." She nodded, tapping notes into her laptop. "Elegant. We'll use that line in court." At midnight, I lay in bed beneath Grandma Lula's quilt, storm winds rattling shutters. Tomorrow promised depositions, social media storms, and maybe televised scandal. Yet beneath the thunder, I heard Henry's phantom trumpet solo, hope riffing on sorrow, turning breath into brass resilience. Just before sleep, I texted Maurice one sentence: "Truth at sunrise or see you under oath." Phone buzzed back instantly. Sunrise. I set the device aside. The storm outside was loud, but inside was the quiet certainty that quilts, though pierced 1,000 times by needles, hold together because each stitch locks the fabric tighter. Tomorrow I'd stitch justice into my family's torn seams, one relentless knot at a time. By the time church bells rang the noon Angelus, cousin Dr. Mariah had turned my kitchen into a command center. Laser-printed statutes fanned across the table, yellow highlighters marking phrases like elder exploitation and aggravated forgery. Reverend Polk arrived carrying sweet tea pitchers and 3 choir deacons who doubled as notary publics. They formed an assembly line, stamping affidavits, collating exhibits, humming low gospel chords that kept our nerves from splintering. "Paper wins cases, Ronnie," Mariah said, feeding another sheet into her portable scanner. "But story wins hearts. We'll need both." The story we planned would begin at Citizens Bank, where Maurice was scheduled to finalize his $50,000 withdrawal at 2:30. At 1:15, we caravanned out. Reverend Polk's van up front, choir ladies in cobalt robes packed like royalty, and my Cadillac, Henry's trumpet riding shotgun in its velvet case, as the caboose of justice. Citizens Bank sat on the town square, red brick and self-important. Choir members filed onto the steps, forming a half circle. At precisely 2, they burst into "Wade in the Water," voices rolling through downtown like summer thunder. Shoppers paused, phones raised, news vans cruised closer, cameras swiveling. Nothing spreads faster than righteous harmony. Inside, branch manager Mr. A. Rodwell wiped sweat from his mustache as we presented Ms. A. Burdell's affidavit proving the stolen notary stamp. He escorted us to a glassed-in conference room. "Mrs. A. Carter," he whispered, "this puts me in a bind, but the law is the law. Funds are frozen pending investigation." 2:30 arrived with squealing tires. Maurice's Tesla, Darren's leased BMW, and Janier's influencer pink Jeep all converging like guilty planets. Maurice strode in first, immaculate but pale. He froze at the choir's chorus piercing the lobby. Janae live-streamed the moment. Her followers showered the feed with broken heart emojis and the hashtag "So Mama Deserves Better." Rodwell called them into the conference room where Mariah sat flanked by Reverend Polk and 3 notarized binders. I remained standing, Henry's trumpet mouthpiece glinting in my fist like a sheriff's star. "Y'all forged my name to confiscate my tomorrow," I began, voice steady as a metronome. "Today you'll write it correctly, on a confession." Maurice tried bluster, estate planning, rising medical costs, fear of my fading faculties. Mariah slid across the table a neurological eval from Dr. A. Selby, dated last month, declaring me cognitively intact and exceptionally resilient. Darren's shoulders slumped. Janae sniffed back tears. "Terms," Mariah said, tapping her pen. "Immediate return of every boxed possession, full restitution of any transferred or attempted funds within 30 days. Public apology aired on Janae's channel and read before the congregation next Sunday. 6 months of volunteer service at Silver Oak's low-income wing, scrubbing floors, not just posing for photos." Maurice opened his mouth, closed it, then signed. Darren followed, near tears. Janae whispered, "I'll lose sponsors." I leaned across. "Baby, influence rooted in fraud is fertilizer for shame. Start over with truth. It's evergreen." She signed. Choir voices swelled outside. "Amen, amen," as we emerged. Reverend Polk announced the agreement to the crowd. Applause rippled. Cameras captured Maurice hugging me, awkward but real. Janae's livestream spiked. "Redemption arc," viewers typed. Back on Magnolia Avenue by dusk, a moving crew unloaded each box beneath watchful deacon eyes. I inspected every memory, calling out missing items until Henry's vinyl, Grandma Lula's quilt, and even the ceramic rooster stood reunited. Choir ladies dusted shelves, humming lullabies older than street lamps. When the last truck rumbled off, twilight draped the porch. Maurice lingered, gaze on the trumpet. "Dad taught me one scale," he murmured. "May I?" I passed him the mouthpiece. He blew. Notes shaky yet earnest, and for the first time in years the house answered with music, not argument. Fireflies rose, blinking approval. Mariah packed her briefcase. "Contracts signed, filings queued for morning, but remember, legal victory is thin without relational repair." I nodded. Victory tastes sweeter shared. The stolen notary stamp surfaces at a pawn shop. Silver Oak's regional director tries hush money, and choir-led cross-examination flips the entire elder care racket on its head. Keep your seat, darlings. The trumpet's just warming up. Tuesday's dawn cracked open over Magnolia Avenue like a courtroom gavel, painting the dewy sidewalks in pale gold that felt more judgment than mercy. I watched the light crawl across my kitchen floor while the coffee maker sputtered its final cough, the scent of chicory rising like a hymn I needed to believe in. We had scored a narrow victory, freezing my stolen savings at Citizens Bank, but Silver Oak Senior Living, a corporation fat as Pharaoh, still towered beyond reach, its lawyers sharpening quills dipped in ironclad clauses. Today would be the first real clash. An emergency injunction hearing downtown to decide whether those forged admissions contracts could be enforced against me or any other elder they'd lured. The house had become a war room overnight. Cousin Dr. Mariah Carter commandeered Henry's old drafting table, stacking binders of state statutes like ramparts. Reverend Polk arrived before sunrise, flanked by 2 choir deacons who doubled as notary publics. They laid hands on every affidavit, murmuring prayers that sounded suspiciously like cross-examination rehearsal. "Speak plain, Sister Veronica, and let the truth do the shouting." I ironed my navy Sunday dress, creases straight enough to slice doubt, and pinned Henry's bronze star above my heart, a reminder that some battles outlive the soldier. At 7:30, the strategy briefings paused for the sweetest interruption. Ava tumbled through the screen door, clutching a shoebox labeled Evidence Extra. Inside lay 3 flash drives. Grandma, Curtis, the janitor at West Lux, found CCTV footage, she said, eyes alight. It shows Maurice and Janae loading your boxes at midnight, laughing about pre-admission bonuses. The room inhaled as one. Dr. Mariah plugged a drive into her laptop and grainy video filled the screen, my children sealing tape over my memories like smug archaeologists burying treasure they plan to sell. The deacons hissed in righteous disbelief. Reverend Polk simply whispered, God sees in night vision. By 8:30, we were a 5-car convoy heading toward Fulton County Superior Court. I rode shotgun in Mariah's Honda, quilt folded on my lap, a talisman stitched from decades of sun-faded joys. Billboards blurred, injury lawyers, gospel stations, storage units ironically promising peace of mind. At each red light, I rehearsed testimony, palms slick despite the September breeze. Could I speak bone-deep hurt without letting tears smear my message? Grandma Lula used to say tears are fine seasoning, but too much, and the stew tastes only of salt. The courthouse steps teemed with reporters. Microphones sprouted like crabgrass, each branded with a logo hungry for viral outrage. Mariah angled her body between me and the press. Later, she said, first we win. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed a nervous staccato while deputies directed us to courtroom 6B. Spectator benches overflowed, church members, Creekside families clutching hope, and a squad of Silver Oaks execs in charcoal suits smelling of cold cologne and colder spreadsheets. Judge Delaney, steel-haired, eyes sharp as upholstery tacks, entered precisely at 9. On today's docket, Carter versus Silver Oaks Senior Living et al., Emergency Equitable Relief. His gravelly baritone silenced the room. Opposing counsel rose. Ms. Gretchen Wallace, partner at Dorsey and Pike, shoes costing more than my first car. She argued quick and slick, Your Honor, the plaintiff voluntarily entrusted her relocation process to her loving children. Silver Oaks merely facilitated standard pre-admission, relying on signed POA. Her smile suggested motherly concern. Her eyes gleamed predator. Mariah rose next, voice steady as metronome. Respectfully, Your Honor, we present forged notarizations, coerced signatures, and video proof of financial incentives tied to premature confinement. Silver Oaks profited from elder exploitation. She clicked the remote. CCTV footage projected huge behind counsel table. Laughter echoed Maurice's, unmistakable. Gasps rippled across the gallery. I felt Ava's small hand squeeze mine. Judge Delaney watched, expression unreadable except for a tightening jaw. Counsel, approach, he ordered. The sidebar lasted 3 tense minutes. When the attorneys retreated, the gavel fell. Motion to enforce pre-admission contract is denied. Temporary restraining order is granted. Defendants are barred from any transfer of plaintiff's assets pending full adjudication. Cheers erupted. Choir deacons stood, harmonizing a single triumphant Amen. But the judge's next words cut celebration short. Furthermore, the court consolidates similar complaints received this morning, 12 in total, into a provisional class action. Preliminary hearing set for Friday. 12. I wasn't alone. My story was a thread in a larger unraveling. Court adjourned, but the real crucible waited outside. Reporters swarmed, questions firing. Mariah nudged me forward. I inhaled, letting the weight of the Bronze Star ground me. Silver Oaks tried to pack away our elders like off-season clothes, I said, voice firm. Remember? A person's past isn't clutter, it's compass. And when you box up someone's compass, don't be surprised if they chart a storm back to your door. Cameras clicked, thunder made of shutters. On the ride home, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered. Curtis's shaky voice whispered, "Mrs. Carter, storage management just handed me a notice. Corporate wants the footage seized. I'm scared." I promised protection, thinking of how giants crush whistleblowers first. As Magnolia Avenue reappeared, so did dread. A certified mail envelope lay wedged in my screen door. Notice of eviction, mortgage in default. My heart stuttered, but the house was paid off. I tore it open. Maurice had leveraged a new mortgage using forged reverse equity paperwork, dated 2 weeks before. The ink wasn't even dry. Mariah placed a calming hand on my shoulder. "They're getting desperate," she said. "Desperate people make mistakes we can weaponize." I nodded, though fatigue pooled behind my eyes. Battles multiply faster than victories. That night, as moonlight pooled on Henry's metal, I unboxed my portable cassette recorder and spoke into the hiss, "Diary of a Mother Under Siege, Day 22. My voice trembled, but held, "Tomorrow we dismantle a fake mortgage before breakfast. After that, Silver Oaks board meeting knows the taste of subpoenas." I clicked, "Stop," tucked the tape beneath my quilt, and finally allowed tears their brief encore. FOMO, cliffhanger. In part 2, a forged mortgage sparks a showdown at the county recorder's office. Whistleblower Curtis disappears, and I march into Silver Oaks shareholder meeting armed with nothing but truth and a gospel choir. You might think tape and tinsel can hold back justice, but wait until you hear the harmony of 70 voices tuned to righteous key. The morning after the forged mortgage envelope arrived, Fulton County's Recorder of Deeds building looked more like a hive under siege than a bureaucratic outpost. Lines of frantic homeowners snake through metal detectors, but Dr. Mariah and I skipped the queue, evidence packet raised like Moses' staff. "Emergent fraud," she told the guard, and the velvet rope parted. Clerk Ramirez, a stout woman whose reading glasses dangled from a pearl chain, examined the paperwork Maurice had filed. A reverse equity loan mortgaging my paid-off house for $200,000. The notary stamp belonged to the same Sakyumun 182 who witnessed my Silver Oaks admission forms. "This is the third fake mortgage I've voided this week," Ramirez muttered, slamming her void stamp with righteous rhythm. She keyed in a protective hold, printing a fresh title deed with my name shining alone. When I signed, her eyes misted. "My abuela lost her house to predators. Glad you came in time." Outside, Ava called, "Grandma, Curtis didn't show up for work. His supervisor said he quit. No notice." My stomach pitched. Whistleblowers don't vanish willingly. I dialed his number, voicemail. Left a message anyway. "Curtis, you're not alone. Call me, collective needed." Reverend Polk met us at First Baptist Annex with unsettling news. His cousin on the county board overheard Silver Oaks executives bragging about a containment plan before Friday's hearing. "Containment often means intimidation," Reverend added. I pictured Curtis, storage corridors echoing, and shivered. Plan, Veronica. I inhaled chicory-laden air and sketched a battle map on the church's whiteboard. 1. Secure Curtis. 2. Freeze any further asset transfers. 3. Expose Silver Oaks publicly before they spin the narrative. Mariah's law students volunteered to trawl social media. Within hours, they located a burner Facebook account linking Curtis to a Motel 6 near Decatur. Zach, Reba's deputy nephew, drove me there lights off. We found Curtis pacing outside room 214, duffel bag at his feet, fear pooling in his eyes. "They sent men last night," he whispered, voice ragged. "Said I'd lose my job, my pension, maybe more." "Jobs can be replaced," I said, pressing my quilt corner into his trembling hand. "Lives can't." Zach escorted him to the sheriff's safe house. Mariah phoned the DA, adding conspiracy to intimidate charges to Silver Oak's rap sheet. At dusk, choir rehearsal transformed into war council. 70 voices filled the sanctuary. Between hymns, we practiced deposition outlines. Sister Louise, alto strong enough to lift rafters, agreed to lead the choir into Silver Oak's shareholder meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. "If Pharaoh won't free the elders," she quipped, "we'll sing plagues upon his ledger books." Friday morning erupted with torrential rain that drummed against my windshield like 1,000 gavels. Perfect weather for reckoning. Ava sat beside me, clutching Henry's medal. Behind us, a caravan of choir vans splashed through puddles, cobalt robes peeking from windows. Silver Oak's corporate HQ, a gleaming glass tower, loomed against storm clouds. Security tried to bar the choir. Sister Louise burst into "Wade in the Water," harmony rolling through revolving doors like holy thunder. Shareholders turned, phones raised, stock prices trembling in real time. Inside the auditorium, CEO Douglas Hart began his quarterly speech, voice droning about sustainable growth sectors. Dr. Mariah interrupted with a stack of freshly filed subpoenas. Gasps. Then I took the mic. "I am Veronica Carter, one of many whose memories you attempted to monetize," I announced. Screens behind me lit up with Curtis's footage, forged notary stamps, Ramirez's voided mortgage, and 12 more victim affidavits. The choir swelled into "This Little Light of Mine," each refrain torching a layer of corporate varnish. Board members shifted. A few slipped out, phones glued to ears. Heart stammered, sweat beating. Stock ticker crawls on the lobby monitors plummeted $5, 10, 15. State investigators arrived midway through the second hymn, badges flashing. They escorted Hart and 2 VPs out in handcuffs, rain washing over their designer suits. Back outside, cameras converged. I spoke once more, voice steady despite sheets of water. "You cannot box up the past without the present bursting free. Elders built these streets. We will not be warehoused, mortgaged, or silenced." A lightning bolt cracked overhead, amen punctuated by heaven. That night, news anchors led with "Gospel Choir topples senior care giant." Ava giggled at the headline. I simply exhaled for the first time in weeks. But victory is never the final note. It's the key change. Judge Delaney set the class action trial for January, and Maurice and Janae petitioned for plea deals, offering restitution funds from their frozen accounts. I drafted terms: community service at public nursing homes, monthly book readings, and a clause that every holiday dinner seat my quilt at the head of the table. Curtis, safe under whistleblower protection, applied for a maintenance job at the reform nonprofit that will replace Silver Oaks. Ramirez agreed to sit on its oversight board. And I pulled Henry's record player from storage, placed the needle on his favorite jazz track, and let the horn section testify. A courtroom verdict echoes across Georgia. Maurice learns a lesson in humility from a 90-year-old poet, and Magnolia Avenue hosts a block party where every boxed memory finds new breath. Stay tuned. Justice still has encores to perform.